Welcome to Generation Movies on a Monday night in November as we careen towards the holiday season. My name is JW Colwell. I'm joined as always by my good buddy and co-host, Rich Drees. Rich,
evening, everybody.
How are you doing tonight? How are things going for you? And what's happened?
Things are going great. Things are going hectic. Things are going berserk. In the next 3 days, I have 5 screenings. So I'm seeing a lot of movies. Earlier this evening, I did an interview for the Big Picture podcast with Matt McGinnis, writer-producer of MST3K, Mr. Sensor 3000, about their fundraising efforts for season 14 that's going on right now. And then, we'll have that dropped tomorrow, hopefully, if I finish editing it tonight. So, as usual,
lots of work,
kind of busy, kind of crazy.
So we're obviously, we love both the classic movies and new movies. Also, if you happen to be in the same boat as us and you like our content, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. The Indie Escape Network is a great place. We're adding new shows. We're moving things around. We're doing all kinds of stuff. And it's a great place. YouTube is a great place to find it. Also, Facebook is a great place to find it. You can find it on either one. There's Facebook, the Indie Escape, or a YouTube page. So we'll keep that running on the bottom. If you like what you see and like what you hear and like hearing from us, please subscribe. It makes it easier to get the new episodes, but also it helps us out because it makes it look like people are actually invested in us, which is great. We love investments. And speaking of investments, and a person who doesn't like investment of any kind, one of the big stories in Hollywood this week, aside from the SAG-AFTRA strike being over, which is good job. Now we have 3 years to wait. Yeah, 3 years until the next strike.
Well, no, we've got IATSE and the Animation Guild just contracts ending next spring, so we could be back in the same boat again.
It's a mess. But
Yay.
I want to talk about somebody that I refer to him as the Zaz. The great and powerful Zaz has spoken. And this man, he runs Warner Brothers, which is what, Rich, a top 3 of all time studio. It's
pretty much.
It's a top 3 studio. It's one of the biggest studios we've ever had. And this man just hates content. He really only likes content that he makes or that his little underlings make. Because we have a really interesting story about a completely marketable film that only cost $30 million to make. That had great test scores and an incredible screening that everybody loved. There's a movie out there in the Warner Brothers hierarchy called Coyote versus Acme. It's a live action blend with John Cena and Wile E. Coyote, and basically it deals with the classic character trying to come I never thought about this, but apparently the plot is something where the classic character says, all this stuff you've been selling me for the last 70 years when I'm trying to kill this roadrunner is faulty. It's junk. And I think that's one of the greatest, coolest ideas I've ever heard. Very
it's one of those ones. It's one of those ideas where the second somebody says it to you, you're like, damn, that was right in front of our noses. Why didn't we think of that first?
Why? Yeah. Why is the coyote never? We're a litigious society. Why has the coyote never gotten litigious? But you know who doesn't like litigious, fun coyote stuff? David Zaslav, and he has canceled the movie and put it on a shelf. And he's using it. Actually, the budget is $70 million. He's using it as a $30 million write-off. So just like Batgirl and the Scooby-Doo Holiday Haunt movie, all of these movies that are apparently well done and enjoyable pieces of pop culture, like we would watch Batgirl even if it was bad. We would watch Scooby-Doo Holiday Haunt.
Their heart and soul into. Now, have you caught up with the news in the last couple of hours?
That they are actively shopping it around?
Yes. The news broke, what was it, Friday or Saturday, that Warner's was going to shelve this thing, and social media, especially among filmmakers, kind of went berserk. There had been some test screenings, so some folks had seen this thing, and they were like, this thing is great. This thing is like Roger Rabbit level of fun.
Yeah, just good, great. Fantastic test scores through the roof, and with a big name star attached to it that would fit perfectly into an animated live action blend movie. What they have now is that it looks like Netflix, Apple, Amazon Prime are all in the business of trying to acquire it. And
or at least it's being shopped.
But at least it's being shopped. I mean, I feel bad now. Like, if it's being shopped and Batgirl's not being shopped, and Scooby-Doo Holiday Haunt, which is finished, it's from the producers of the Scoob movie, Holiday Haunt. It's finished, and just everybody worked on it in their downtime. And so this guy is a bane. This guy is running one of the biggest studios and most important studios in the history of Hollywood, and he is just a tool bag. He is a tool bag of epic proportions, Rich, and we need him gone. He needs to go. Whatever Discovery Rock he crawled out from under, he needs to go back and find a show where a bunch of people are on an island and they're having sex while also trying to survive on the island. Just go back. Or they're trying to flip a house. Go the fuck back. Stop messing around with filmmakers. And it's just one of those things where as he starts shopping all the products, like, he's also taking things and just pitching them out to Netflix, which makes Max, one thing that I can tell you, if you haven't checked out Max recently, it's a fucking mess. You can't find anything. Everything that pops up is garbage.
When I talked to you yesterday, when we talked yesterday, you were under the weather. You are 110% better now, man. You are like fired up right now.
I had one of the worst weekends of my life. I mean, the Raiders won last night. It obviously buoyed me, but I'm dealing with. I ate buttered toast today. That's basically all I've eaten in the last 3 days is buttered toast. So whatever. But Zaslav is like, he's a corporate guy trying to run really talented people, and this is the kind of thing where,
I mean, throughout the history of motion pictures in Hollywood, 100 and some years now, Warner Brothers is 100 years old this year, and this is how he's trying to commemorate that important anniversary in their history. And you look at other studio heads at Warner Brothers and across, Hollywood were businessmen. But they also loved movies. They loved movies. They wanted to make great movies. They wanted people to see great movies. And I don't think this guy likes movies at all. I think he just sees them as a widget to be sold. And he doesn't give a shit about any of it, really. is the impression that I get. And it disturbs me because he doesn't understand how many people, as I said a moment ago, poured their heart and soul into this film. And some people started releasing like some behind the scenes footage that they had shot on their phones and stuff like that on Twitter over the weekend. And
Yeah, good.
every
Everybody
moment I
should riot.
saw made me
Everybody
matter
Everybody
about
should riot, and every time this guy gets near a production, somebody should go, no, go back to your discovery rock underneath, get under, stay away. Let's get some comments as we start tonight. Ken McKernan, good evening, friends. Good evening, Ken. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for posting in the Loud Nerdy group that we're finally getting The Abyss in 4K.
Oh yes, that was
God.
a great announcement. Also, coming to the Criterion Channel in December, Josie and the Pussycats, which totally vindicates me about what a great movie that is.
Well, it's part of the Parker Posey collection, right?
Probably.
Yeah. There's Party Girl and a couple of the other movies are Parker Posey. I think they're celebrating Parker Posey, but that's fine.
Yeah.
5 screenings. Yeah, it had a lot of
Joe.
Yeah, Rich is busy. This is Rich's.
I can't even talk about some of the movies I'm seeing. Actually,
I'm digging the beard, JW. Okay, so the beard thing, really quick. I'm not. I'm a baby face naturally, so this beard thing is not working. But I am trying to show solidarity with No Shave November for all the men issues and the male issues. So I'm going to try to hold on to it. I'm not promising anything because it's almost to the annoyance stage for me. It's almost to the thing where I just have to I'll rip my face off if I don't get it off. Let's see. I've been watching Scooby since the 70s. How the fuck do you shelf Scooby? Even today's kids know Scooby. That's the thing. And that movie that came out during the pandemic, the Scoob movie, while not the greatest Scoob movie ever, it was still a fun animated movie that opened the door for a wide array of things in the Scooby universe, including Captain Falcon and Captain Caveman and all the Blue Falcon. I'm sorry.
I'm such a nerd.
You're a terrible person.
That the second Scoob movie was developed like Batgirl for Max, and when Zaslav came in, they had that whole corporate mentality shift on it doesn't make sense, and he may be right on a certain level. It doesn't make financial sense to invest 40, 50, 70, $100 million onto $120 million in the case of Batgirl into a project for a streaming service. And yet he didn't believe that like Batgirl or the Scooby movie could be profitable in a theatrical run. So his thought was just like shuck the whole thing rather than, well, let's put it out there, see what it makes, and then deal with whatever that offset is.
Tax write-off and not caring about the artist is one of the worst things we have. Like, it's real hard that guy's representing Warner Brothers at the negotiation table, telling artists, I care about your stuff. And that guy's sitting at the table. Like, so you can look around the table and see some of those people actually care. But Zaslav was actually at the front of almost gutting TCM and actually like firing everybody. And he had to get a phone call from the big three who basically said,
Spielberg had to say, stop it.
Well, all three of them, Scorsese, Spielberg, and I think it was Nolan. Who all came out of the do and were like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what are you doing, man? Just cut the shit. The other big story, of course, is Marvels. The Marvels did not do great, although I'm still marveling at the idea when a movie makes $120 million total for the weekend that we go, that movie's a bomb. And my thing is, like, I think the most interesting thing about it is we're comparing it to things where, the grosses of Endgame and Spider-Man No Way Home and like all these movies, like these other lesser movies aren't going to make that much. Like even when Guardians of the Galaxy did over $800 million, people were like, oh, that's low. And it's like, I think we're at a crossroads with the content. I think Fahey should pull it back a little bit just to go, oh, did you miss them? Did you miss? We've been giving you all these Marvel movies, and I think very much a fondness makes or absence makes the heart grow fonder, right?
I would say too that there's a way probably to make these movies just as spectacular as they are, and maybe not spend quite so much. Uh, you have that whole process of we shoot the film and then we put it together and then we do some reshoots and then we throw out a bunch of stuff and we keep doing that as until we get to a drop dead point 2 weeks before the release.
Special sauce.
And,
we're trying to make special sauce.
yeah, and you can't do that because that's just A, you're burning out special effects houses. B, they're starting to unionize, and that's gonna put a stop to you abusing
them. Good for
C,
them.
yeah. C, you should be going into the production with your scripts perhaps a bit more solid than.
Well, and maybe this will be like a warning light. And also, I think part of the issue, and again, it drew some interesting jibes and fighting online today. Stephen King, who hates the Marvel universe, came out in defense and was like, "Why are people always so apt on the internet to gloat when something that they don't like fails? Like, why are they?"
I'm like that too. I'm not a big Stephen King fan, but of his, because I'm not a horror guy really. But as a person, I love his stuff on Twitter, and I'm in 100% agreement with him here. So many people seem ready to want to dance on the grave of a movie, in particular certain Marvel projects, long before the movie even comes out, and
it's really
you're
hard
poisoning the discourse.
They are poisoning the discourse, and also it's really hard that the movie that we're trying to poison is the movie with 3 female leads, 2 of which are people of color, 1 of which is impressively young, and so we should be a little bit nicer, I think. Also, and I think one of the things that I'm looking at with the Marvels, and I think what I think is going to happen is that I think it'll do okay. I think it'll bump along through the holidays because there's really nothing coming out that's going to sink it. There's nothing like what you got. Trolls, you got a couple other things, maybe Wish, but then Disney doesn't really care because they're making their money. But I think Fahey steps back, and I think part of the bigger problem for them, and one of the things that's that everybody's talking about, rumors and whatnot, that there's a break glass emergency script somewhere that brings everybody back. But I don't think he should play into that. I think he should maybe make a bunch of movies in a different MCU for a little while. Marvel's gives us an opportunity to go to a different MCU, see what's going on in that MCU, and then set up for a big Secret Wars thing. You know what I mean? Like, just we can make this work. I think Fahey's smart enough to do it. I do hope that he stays around and doesn't fall into this trap of giving people who use the word woke any kind of credence. Like, that's because it's like the Marvels is woke. Shut the fuck up. Just stop with this nonsense. And just why can't we all get along, Rich? Makes me sad. Makes me sad. But you know what? Thanksgiving doesn't make me sad. Thanksgiving is food and family and football and all the things that make us who we are. Not necessarily football for everybody, but I understand. But Thanksgiving is one of the holidays.
Watch Turkey Day.
Well, I like one of my favorite things to do. Like, I love Thanksgiving. My mom was a florist, so her big thing was always watching the parades, looking for things like how things got made with floral arrangements and stuff. So she liked the Tournament of Roses parade, and so she always liked the parade. So my mom would wake up every Thanksgiving and watch the parades. So now I have a whole generation, my little nephews, we get up and we watch the parades looking for cool balloons because that's what a 49-year-old should do. And clearly stay out of the way of cooking and whatnot. Comment, Ken, people judge today movies on box office and not merit. That's true. But again, the problem there is Rich, this movie grossed 120 million. You know, worldwide. Like it's not like it's. I know it costs 220 to make, probably another 300 for advertising and all this other stuff.
It's going to need to clear 600 to turn a profit for Marvel, and it's possible. I mean, Elemental opened rather low this summer, but just had legs because it just stuck around. So I mean, there is a path there. It's not a likely path, but hopeful. We'll see what the drop off is in terms of percentage this coming weekend.
I think it's a hopeful thing for Marvel, but I also think and Ken,
I was gonna say, and Ken is right. I agree with Ken on this too. That I mean, yeah, box office is interesting in up to a certain point, but after that, though, it doesn't matter. We have this movie; it's been made. Just getting a movie made these days is a fucking miracle, with all the problems and hurdles that you have to jump through from like writing a script to getting it greenlit to getting the financing to getting all the right actors and everything else. Getting it all to come together, it's a goddamn miracle. And
this movie is really fun.
So, and we will always have those miracles with us to watch.
I will watch this movie more than I watch some of the early Marvel movies. I will watch it more than I watch the Hulk.
Well, we were talking about holiday movies beforehand. It's a Wonderful Life. Absolute bomb at the box office. So obviously that means the movie itself was trash. And everybody is holding up it as a classic now. So,
Well, it's very rare that you get a movie.
It's nice when a movie makes money. It's nice when the company that decided to make this movie thought it was a good investment and they make money so they can make more movies. But only up to a certain point. And then you're just looking at it as, we have
what you said before, a widget.
Yeah, well, the studio's looking at it as a widget to sell, but we have a piece of art that somehow speaks to us, which is far more.
Yeah, and I think the Marvels will actually be one of those movies, one of the Marvel movies that people look back and go, I missed this. I missed this in theaters. I bet it was a blast. But a movie that didn't get missed in theaters. We are starting our Thanksgiving run up to Thanksgiving. That's the best way to say it. Tonight we start with Pieces of April, which is a 2003 movie it takes the heart of it's 20 years old this year. It is the heart and soul of a Thanksgiving holiday, in that it has, and a Thanksgiving holiday movie, in that it has people fumbling to cook, it has people fumbling to make travel plans, and it has people finding their better nature as a result of the holiday, and helping others out. And I think for what it is, it's like we were talking about this early. You're like, so what did you think of it? And I'm like, I remember seeing it, right? But I remember, specific things. I remember Patricia Clarkson being amazing. I remember Katie Holmes. It was one of those breakout movies for her, where it was after Dawson's Creek, and it was after, before Tom Cruise, after Dawson's Creek, and she was she was really working hard to make it work.
Trying to find her career.
Where it was going to go. And I think the most interesting thing about, when we do our show, we always talk about the production, the hitches. This movie was in pre-production for 9 years, 8 years?
Well, yeah, the writer-director, Peter Hedges, was just trying to get that money together. If you don't know the name off the top of your head, Peter Hedges wrote What's Eating Gilbert Grape. He also wrote About a Boy from 2002. And this is his first film as a director. And
he goes on to make some really great movies. He goes on to make Dan in Real Life, The Odd Life of Timothy Green, Ben is Back, Same Storm. So he becomes a really accomplished indie director. But this is the movie where where they found him. And I think the most interesting thing is it first run into production, they had a $7 million budget, right? And then second run of production, they had a $7 million budget. When it finally comes time to finish the script and fix it and move everything around, it's 9 years later. Actors are still attached, but they're not like, it's not a done deal, and also it's obviously not for the same amount of money they make. They end up making the movie Rich for $300,000, and it's a little independent firm that is headed by Gary Winnick, who is a great director and producer that passed away recently, and he made a bunch of really great movies that everybody in our audience would know. Movies like Tadpole, 13 Going on 30. He did Charlotte's Web. He did Bride Wars, Letters to Juliet. So he was a really good picker and finder of talent. And he was a really good, before he died of brain cancer at 49 in 2011, he was an amazing, he won the John Cassavetes Spirit Award. He was he was a really cool guy that made movies on the cheap that said something or did things. And I think that's one of the great stories about this movie, is that it's clearly an indie production, that it's clearly on a low budget, and that it's clearly a labor of love. And then you find out the backstory on it, Rich. You find out that the script, the original time he wrote the script, the mother who is dying of cancer in the movie, after his mom dies of cancer himself, he goes back to the script and he finds it and he starts polishing it, not as an autobiographical thing. He made that abundantly clear in interviews and everything, that it's not autobiographical, but it is an honor to his mother. There's a couple lines in the movie. There's a memory of April when she's a little girl. It ends up being her sister Beth, but basically said, "Mom, look at how great the day is." It's a wonderful moment. But that's actually something his mother would say to him. Get up out of bed. Look at how great the day is. And so it's, the dedication at the end of the movie is to his mother with that saying, wake up and discover a beautiful day, or whatever it is. And I just think that that's when you get these personal movies and when you get stories like that, Rich, it's incredible when you bring it to a production and then you have all these actors coming in and they're taking scale. Rich, they're not getting paid any money. And we're talking about major actors like Katie Holmes is coming off of Dawson's Creek. Oliver Platt and Patricia Clarkson were not hurting for jobs in the early 2000s, in the aughts. Sean Hayes is working on Will and Grace. So not to mention Cisco and Derek Luke, who's, coming out of Save the Last Dance. And so, I mean, there's so many things here where you just go, this all came together for $300,000. And it's a beautiful it's not a major epic piece of cinema, but it is abundantly pleasant. And it has a lot of things going on that are just, definitively New York and definitively families that fight and, trying to find the right place to have the fight and fix it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But the production didn't last that long. Also, short production, 300,000. I think it's one of the testimonials to how great the movie is that it looks seamless for how cheap it is. That's not a negative, by the way. That's just, it looks fantastic, and it's all handheld shots and all double people using handheld cameras. Because that was one of the cool things about the production, is that they did scenes in this very small environments in real New York apartments. One set of apartments was for the stairs, and one set of apartments was for the interior of 3 apartments. Some of the people that were in the movie are actually extras or real apartment dwellers of New York City. And the shots are on shaky handheld cameras that they had to use because they couldn't fit real cameras in. So, I mean, it screams independent movie. And that's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, there are some familiar faces in there. Like we already mentioned, Sean Hayes. Um, the one apartment neighbor, the heavyset guy who had the cats.
Yes.
Adrian, his actor's name is Adrian Martinez, and he's popped up in a lot of stuff over the years. I'm thinking like the Will Smith movie Focus. He was recently in Renfield this past year. Secret Life of Walter
Oh,
Mitty from 2013.
there are so
But
many people in this movie.
he was also in a series I really liked called Stumptown from a couple of years ago with Kobe Smulders as a private eye. It was a really good modern neo noir, and he was great in it. He was a semi-recurring character. He was in nearly every episode.
Yeah, the casting is a real interesting thing because there is a veritable, when you're looking at it, the people are easily recognizable. Katie Holmes is a star. Derek Luke, if my wife loves to Save the Last Dance, so I knew that guy from. I'm like, oh, it's him. Oliver Platt, Allison Pill, and John Gallagher Jr. Right? John Gallagher Jr. and
Allison Pill. She, her character is what 15 or so in this movie.
Yeah,
and I don't know as an actress how old she is. I probably should do that math on this right now.
It's wild. It is absolutely wild that Allison Pill is in this movie, and that she's a little bit
95. Yeah, she was 18, probably 17 when she made this.
Yeah,
because she was born in 85.
Well, and also the most interesting thing there is John Gallagher Jr. and Allison Pill, who are playing brother and sister. Wasn't Allison Pill in the Newsroom as well?
Yep. Oh, that's right. They both were.
John Gallagher is in the Newsroom. So I was watching it. I'm like, they're playing brother and sister, but in the Newsroom they hook up. So it's like,
I forgot about that.
Oh my goodness!
Holy hell!
Yeah,
I knew I knew him from somewhere, and I was rewatching.
Yeah. I was dawning on it myself. Sean Smithson, hey brothers, hey Sean, how you doing? Good to hear. Allison Pill is in it. Fan of her. She was in Goon and recently Picard. She's great in almost everything she's in. Actually, to be honest.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. The cast.
And if you bump into her in a bookstore, she's very nice as well.
Did you bump into her? Well, tell it again. We're in the middle of an Allison.
Okay. Whenever Picard season 1 came out and they were at New York Comic Con, that Sunday. So it was 2019. That Sunday before going, the big Star Trek panel was that Saturday. The next day before going back to the show, Natasha was with me and we went. We wanted to stop at the Strand before heading to the Javits Center for the con, and we're literally poking through some shelves on the second floor of the Strand bookstore, and Natasha turns to me and goes, or comes around the corner and goes, Allison Pill is right around the corner. I'm like, are you kidding me? She's like,
it wasn't a whisper. It was way louder than that if it was Natasha.
No, it was a whisper.
It was a whisper.
She was close. Okay. And so we kind of go around and she's standing there, but she had her 2 kids with her and their nanny, and the kids were kind of, being kids. I'm not going to fault them for that. I'm not going to fault her for
kids
them.
in a bookstore. Scary. Yeah. Scary business.
So we just kind of said hi, big fans of the Newsroom, and looking forward to Picard. Loved the presentation yesterday, and she's, oh, thanks. And I was like, we know you got to go chase the kids. So off she went. But it was a fun little interaction. Stars, they're just like us.
They read books. I think the interesting thing about the filming, 16 days filming, really short. Many of the locations they only had for 1 or 2 days. Salvation Army store, the places that Burns family home. Also, many of the apartments are actually real apartments with real people who lived in them. So, the idea that they shot it and did handheld cameras and basically cut the medium down. If you watch the movie, there's only close and medium shots because they don't have anything to do wide shots. So you have a bunch of close and medium shots where it's because they're doing it with two different cameras that are handheld, and the resolution and wide digital shots at the time in 2003 weren't great. So the two cameras they also used as a way to be able to film everything in one take. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's kind of a marvel. It's only a $300,000 movie, but it's solid on screenplay, is pretty cut and dry. It has a great cast. It has a wonderful message about fixing things and about talking to people outside of your own bubble, right? I mean, the apartment
Yeah.
building is an amazing amalgam of society in this movie. Especially when April's stove breaks and she has to kind of like figure out how can I get my turkey cooked in an apartment building full of people who don't know me really.
Yeah.
I mean,
Because
there's
it definitely says something about like the New York way of living where you're all sharing a building, but none of the neighbors know each other.
yeah, except one. A couple of the neighbors know a couple of them.
Yeah.
But the production is pretty seamless. They get funding, they fix it, they he polishes the script. Patricia Clarkson and Oliver Platt and Katie Holmes, and everybody does a really good job with a pretty interesting family dynamic movie. And the box office comes. Now, here's the thing. It's not a huge box office success by any means, right? Like the idea we're talking about the amount of money that Captain Marvel made, $47 million, being a box office bomb. I That's where I get so wound up about things, right? This movie earned $2.5 million domestically. It's celebrating its 20th anniversary, and it grossed about $3.2 million. But it's widely regarded as a movie that's important, right? I mean, that's really interesting.
Patricia Clarkson's performance here is, of course, I think the highlight of the whole film. And obviously, so many people thought so too, because, she got an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress here, a Golden Globe nomination for Best Supporting Actor, a Screen Actors Guild Award for Outstanding Performance by Female Actor in a
Yeah,
Supporting
she was
Role.
doomed. I looked at the nominees, and it was a
But
brutal supporting actress nominees.
But the
Just
Critics Associations, looking at this though,
yeah,
she won Boston Society Film Critic Award for Best Supporting Actress, Chicago Film Critics Association Award. She got a special jury prize for a dramatic performance at Sundance, Florida Film Critics Award. She
it's a
won National
fantastic
Board of
performance.
Review,
It's
National Society of Film Critics, San Francisco Film Critics Circle. Again, it's just everybody just knew this was a special performance, and it was.
yeah, and opening weekend here we're talking about 47 million for Captain Marvel. $48,422 opening weekend. It lasted about 9 weeks in theaters, which is pretty amazing. It only hit about 101 theaters, right? Total.
Mm-hmm.
And the max it had. If you looked at the gross now, it'd be 4.4 million, which is kind of what we see with avant-garde independent movies, right? And so I think the interesting thing box office wise is that this movie, when it comes to home video, it kind of takes off, and it kind of finds a place, and it has a little place where people watch it around the holidays, or kind of go back to it. And I think that's because not necessarily because it's just a sweet little movie. It's not out to change anything. But it's really sweet, and it has a great heart about it with regards to dealing with a parent that's passing away.
Yeah,
It's got a really a beautiful center to it, and the performances.
and I dare say, this is something we've both dealt with. I still have my dad, but that's only a matter of the progression of his problems. And it does reinforce the idea that these family bonds are important, and as long as people are willing to, reach out, you need
Yeah,
to respect that, and
there is
reach
a
back, reach out in return. And
so
these, these moments, especially the last time you will have a Thanksgiving dinner with, your mother, they become very important, because the grieving process is that first year you go through and you're like, oh, this is the first time, this is the first Thanksgiving without mom. This is the first Christmas without mom. And then the next year, you have to figure out what is your new Thanksgiving tradition, your new Christmas tradition, things like that. But
hard,
taking that
hard,
back, yeah, it's hard, and that's
hard.
why those are always very important, though.
Well, and the idea that holidays are for most part often played for comedy. Holidays are also, they're stressful times where everybody kind of they have a vision of what something's supposed to be. And I think this is a perfect place to go into the critical response then and now for this movie. I think what's interesting about the now is that it is this wonderful little bit of cinema from IFC Films that has no real like has no really business. It only costs $300,000. It has no business being this sweet and wonderful, with a jaw-breaking performance from Patricia Clarkson and Katie Holmes, who often in the movie is either acting with a turkey or forced to act with a bunch of different people all around her. So she doesn't really have a lot of people. She has people to play off in the building, but she doesn't have the person she loves in the movie, and she doesn't have her family. And so she's consistently bouncing off walls. And it's not like she's trying to make everything perfect, as we all do around the holidays. And I think that's a wonderful kind of testament to racing against time, racing against how do I get this turkey cooked? How do I get everything perfect before they show up?
She has no idea how to cook a turkey, though. She has no idea how to do almost any of this.
Nothing.
And
I
honestly,
like it from a can.
I mean, it's the dramatic plot point that drives the rest of this movie, but ultimately it turns out like the stove malfunctioning, so she has to go find somebody to help her, lend her some stuff, oven time to help cook the turkey, and then meeting those neighbors and everything else. The stove breaking is the best thing that ever happened to her, and I honestly think if the stove hadn't broken, what she would have made for her mom and dad and family when they came would not have been as good, and that probably would have led to another fight and
yes, and also like
an
there's
irrevocable, an unrepairable split there, because that would have been the last time she would have had to reconcile with her mom,
to do something good for her mom. I think the African American couple that shows up in the middle is so amazing. Like it starts off in a really fun place, because the words she uses when she's talking to them, where she's basically she basically says to them, I have problems. And she's like, ooh, she has problems. 24-year-old white girls at our door talking about problems. And it's just this amazing little moment. And then the next scene you see of them, they're sitting on the couch and she's got tissues and she's like, oh my God, that's the saddest story I ever heard. Of course we'll help you with your turkey.
The cut there is one of the funniest cuts in the movie.
It's a great cut.
Oh, you got problems, do you?
She's ripping her to shreds. And Katie Holmes has there's a great medium shot of Katie Holmes' face like, I don't need this shit right at this moment. We can talk about the problems and the problems I have or don't have, but I don't need this right at this moment. And then the cutscene is so perfect. It's just amazing. I also think the Patricia Clarkson, she's so like the cancer has taken her over, right? The cancer is winning, and she's allowing it to actually. There is one sequence where Alison Pill is singing, and it's just about the saddest, meanest thing I've ever seen in a film. Uh, it's it's bone crunching mean. She's sitting in the back. Alison Pill singing an operetta, an opera, like a maybe a hymn or something, and it's beautiful and it's really well done.
Mhm.
And she gets to the end and she says, what would you like me to do now? And Patricia Clarkson, in no uncertain terms, says, please stop. And it's just a kick. And they go to a close up of Alison Pill. All the sequences, by the way, and this is an amazing story. All of the sequences in the cars are just the actors going to different sets, which is just, we're going to take every bit of time we have with these very, like, it's the opposite of Zazzle. We appreciate your time so much as an artist that we will use every bit of it so that we
We're
can
not
get
wasting.
this done and not wasting any moment. But it's such a great moment, and they goes to a close up of Alison Pill's face, and it just, you can see the blood rushing out of her face, and it
It's
starts off
an
as like it's brutal. It
it's an
is
amazing acting moment, especially for someone that
so
young.
young.
She's like just staring out, and she's trying to keep that smile of like, I'm the good daughter. April is the bad daughter. I'm gonna be the one mom loves, and she's just like, she just realizes like everything she's ever done in her life is probably for naught at or it feels that way at that moment. And just watching that,
It's
like you said, the
it's
color drains out
brutal.
of her face. It's
Everything. It's an amazing sequence, and the only child I think she really likes is Timmy, and that's only because he's given her a book that she can show to other people to shock them.
Mhm.
Like, it's an amazing performance, but it will leave
and,
you
and he gets her pop.
cold, and he gets her pot. Yes,
Yeah, how
but
about this? 20 years ago, this is like one of the first pro medical marijuana movies. I can't think of anything from earlier
is.
than this.
Well, and
So,
also, like, it like she gets him pot, and she also gives her a book detailing her mastectomies,
mhm.
and she uses that book to, like, Oliver Platt's in the front seat just going, we don't need to show this right now. You know, Oliver Platt, by the way, it's a very low key Oliver Platt performance, but
Mhm.
it's spot on for somebody watching his spouse waste away and just trying to make it all work. And there's a moment where she gets out of the car, she's running down the street, and he says to her, look, talk to April. Everything's going to be fine. What if it's not? It's going to be fine. Because I told her I'd kill her if it wasn't. And you're just like, but it's not an overbearing Platt performance. He kind of, like, does a lot of facial stuff. He doesn't have a lot of dialogue. Doesn't have, like, he's reacting to how mean his wife is. And there's also a Patricia Clarkson moment where she stops and talks to everybody for a moment, where she's like, she's very serious, low voice, and starts talking about, I want you to prepare for, and it's like they all lean in, like she's going to tell them something super important about what's going to happen after she passes, and they all lean in, and she goes, I want you to prepare for April's meal to be so bad that we have to find ways for each of us to spit it out in the garbage. And as they all kind of reel back, she laughs at them, like cackles at them for,
Mhm.
like, and then and she's like, no, 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 fine, everything's fine. And she just kind of blows it off. But she is one of the most layered, angry at her place in life, and she's so vicious in this movie. But she's also somebody that clearly they all loved and needed her respect. You know what I mean? It's an ambitious performance, and it's also the kind of performance where you go, when we look back at Patricia Clarkson's you know, work, we will look back and say, this was the performance where she was able to layer a character that is could be a classically the mean mother role, and it's layered with pain and sadness, and just, you know, after she tackles it, Alison Pill and says, "Please stop." She also says, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I did that. I don't know. I'm sorry." It's
It's very
it's intense.
there's a lot of layers going on in this family dynamic. They hint at some of the things that have led them to this point. They never really give you a shit ton of backstory or explanation or exposition, and that's fine because the way they play everything, you don't need to know why. You just know what that damage has been.
And that this dinner is consequential. This Thanksgiving dinner is consequential. Whether it's the mother's last dinner or April's last chance or anything like that. Like, you know, the kids have kind of pulled away from their sister a little bit. And also it's the last chance for the father. Like, I talked to her. She has a new boyfriend. She got rid of the drug dealer. Like, it's like everything is weighing on both April and her mom in this movie. And it's a beautiful, like, you know, the idea that she gets there and she, you know, she's welcomed with open arms, and like the first thing that Katie Holmes does when she gets to the door is just give her a big hug. And it's a beautifully sentimental movie, but it's also razor sharp. And I mean razor sharp. For everybody who's been to a family dinner where one of the kids is super talented and they're put up forth to sing, and, you know, the drunk uncle sits in the corner and just, like, you know, puts the kibosh on the enjoyment of it. It's very much like that. I think the other thing that we need to talk about with it is the reviews it's, as you know, on the show we do use Rotten Tomatoes as a good way for an aggregate. It's at 84 on Rotten Tomatoes, 73% audience score. So it's in the higher percentiles of movies that matter. And I think as it celebrates its 20th anniversary, and as people kind of find it, maybe around Thanksgiving, maybe around like other holidays, right? It's starting to make all the lists, right? I think a movie achieves some sort of status when it makes a list with like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and a couple other Thanksgiving movies, right? And this is one of them.
This is not one of our typical movies that we cover here on Generation Movies, and I'm glad we're talking about it though, because I think, you know, it's really, like we said, it's really good. Patricia Clarkson has a great performance. We've already covered that. Early Alison Pill. We've got Katie Holmes in
superstar mode. It's Katie Holmes
in kind of like flux that is going to get unfortunately sidetracked. So watching this performance here, you kind of get the feeling of like, shit, if she didn't get tied up with Tom Cruise and all of that nonsense, where would her career gone? Would she have done something? Would she have done something parallel to her Dawson's co-star Michelle Williams, and just done like all these great indie dramas and, you know, just wonderful character
There is
work?
a lot of talent in Katie Holmes in this movie, because she's carrying the movie. The movie's kind of buckling around her, and as everything fails and doesn't work, and, you know, we get all these other sidetrack storylines with Wayne, the upstairs neighbor. That's I put on a thing tonight. Look at this, Wayne. Wayne is clearly a serial killer. You know, he has the nicest stove in the entire building, but he ends up being really creepy. And all the other people that kind of come in and out. Now, we should note that we're not the only people that think this is a great movie, and that not that we don't matter, but what I'll say is the things that are said about this movie by, like, say, Roger Ebert, who you and I really love, 3 out of 4 stars. Describing it as well-intentioned in its screwy way, with flashes of human insight and actors who can take a moment and make it glow. That is pitch perfect to what we just said, right? And it's really true. There are moments. Every one of the actors gets a moment to shine in this movie, and I can see why people would want to work with Peter Hedges again as a director. The other reviews, some of the other reviews that you can hear, and again, not a lot of negative reviews, but the ones that you hear, you know, where you're looking up and you're trying to figure out what movie to watch for Thanksgiving or something, right?
Yeah. Peter Travers in Rolling Stone, to kind of maybe sell this even a little bit better. He talks about, the various elements of the story. And he goes, I know it sounds like sitcom pap, but writer Peter Hedges making an encouragingly non-pushy debut as a director is too good for that. Even Mom's terminal cancer doesn't turn the film maudlin, thanks to Clarkson, who is scrappy perfection in the role, but it's Holmes who holds pieces together, whether she's begging for cooking tips from her black neighbors or fighting with a bitchy tenant, Sean Hayes. Holmes nails every laugh without missing the dramatic nuances. Nuances, excuse me.
Yeah,
She
I
makes
got you.
April movie well worth knowing. And I think, that kind of sums it up that, again, what kind of career would Katie Holmes have had if it hadn't been
Yeah,
directed?
the Marvel what if? What if Katie Holmes didn't get wrapped up in that madness? And I think that's a great way. Peter Travers nailing it on the head. She takes the crux of the movie. Clarkson gets to chew scenery, other actors, the car. Like she chews everything in this movie. And it's not that it's a bad thing. The Legacy franchise, obviously we're not going to get a legacy out of this movie, but
I think we do. I think we do
well,
get,
I
of the actors going on.
I misspoke. I think the legacy of this movie is that 20 years later, as it's discovered by, our generation who maybe missed it first time around, didn't play in a lot of theaters, didn't play a lot of weeks, came out in video and kind of like drifted along. And if you weren't a fan of Dawson's Creek, I don't know that you were constantly looking for things with Michelle Williams and James Van Der Beek and Katie Holmes. You know what I mean? Like I just don't know. And so I think the interesting thing here is one of the cool legacies is this guy Peter Hedges ends up making a bunch of really great low budget movies that are all personal to him. He makes movies that are his. And the one that stands out, Dan in Real Life, he's the co-writer and the director of, which is a fantastic 2007 comedy with Steve Carell, Alison Pilligan, Juliette Binoche, Dean Wiest, John Mahoney, Dane Cook. It's fantastic, right? And I think
that was shot in Rhode Island, wasn't it?
Yes.
Memory serves.
Yes.
I need to watch it because somebody told me there's a shot on the Narragansett Bay Bridge that could possibly be looking back down westward off the bridge towards roughly the area where my grandfather owned property. So
interesting. That's great. But he ends up making a bunch of really good, interesting movies that are interesting to him. He also ends up going. He wrote a lot of plays and everything. So he's got a lot of stuff out there. He's got novels. He's got, he sometimes goes back to the novels. He ends up being one of our more talented, underrated directors that we don't know a lot about. I think Clarkson just kind of, she was in the aughts, she was kind of everywhere, right? In the aughts, she is one of those actresses that is every single place. And this is one of the movies that solidified her as a big player with the amount of things that were coming out around her. And so she, it's kind of an interesting thing. I wanted to talk a little bit for her about the legacy. This performance is really great, but she was up against heavy fucking hitters, Rich. I looked it up today. It was this particular Academy Awards Best Supporting Actress, Rich. It's 2004. So do you want to take a guess at what the nominees were, and then we'll talk about it for a second?
Off the top of my head, I can't think of it. Let's be honest.
Okay, no pressure, Rich. Okay, so 2004. How about Natalie Portman in Closer? How about I'm sorry. Hold on. I lied. Wrong year. Forgive me. How about Holly Hunter in 13? How about Marcia Gay Harden in Mystic River? How about Shora Ashgalu, right, in House of Sand and Fog, and then she lost to Renee Zellweger in Cold Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
So just a brutal lineup to go up against. And but it's one of those movies where it's like that performance really stands out, and it's really kind of beautiful. I think also that the production house that we're talking about with Gary Winnick, right, who passed away, he ends up producing a bunch of other really cool movies like Tadpole and 13 Going on 30, and later Charlotte's Web, later Bride Wars, later Letters to Juliet before he passed away. And he is one of those guys that made good movies with lower budgets that were kind of like the calling card of the 90s and the aughts, right? These independent movies with the Independent Film Channel, and the IFC is what the logo is on here, and it's just it's nice. It is a
Mm-hmm.
nice, wonderful, things, and I think we also get a bunch of other kind of copycat films, like out of this movie, and I want to check the date before I say it, but the one I was thinking of, and then another movie that I'm going to say that has a lot in common with the idea of people being a family and a road trip and a kind of a um, mindset, right? I think Little Miss Sunshine owes a lot to this movie.
Yeah, I would suggest that is a
The idea
possibility.
of low budget, and it's it owes a lot to this movie in the sense that it's low budget. It has all these quirky family things going on within it when it's center, and really a really good supporting performance. So you can take it for what it's worth. But I enjoyed this movie immensely, rewatching it, and I will do everything in my power to make it a yearly kind of like pre-Thanksgiving kind of feast movie, because I just think it's really sweet. It's got a lot of the good things on. And if you have anything if you've lost a parent, it's rough,
Yeah.
but it's also like kind of cathartic, because like my dad
Yeah.
was a really tough guy. Like the story I would tell everybody for an honesty thing. I got I had a problem. I got arrested one time outside a screening of The Bodyguard where I was drinking with my friends, and my dad got the call from the cops, the Dixon City cops, right? And my dad got the call, and when I got home, he's like, "You want to tell me anything or no? Want to go?" And I started crying. I was like, "Fuck! How the fuck did he find out so fast?" And I was crying. And he's like, "Don't cry, don't cry. There's no need for crying. You can be an adult about this. You got arrested with booze. Everything you can be adult." And he's like, "I love you. That world out there doesn't love you. So you're crying with me, and the world's gonna eat you up." And so I was thinking about the acerbic wit of the Patricia Clarkson character the entire time about my dad. My dad was so tough and so fun to deal with, but also like he was a pill at times. I can say it now, but he was like, everybody who worked for him like knew he was like a hard ass, and everybody like you're in the family, he would like ask questions that made people uncomfortable. You know what I mean? Like, don't be silly about things. Just keep it straight. I don't want any junk. So that's what my cathartic experience today watching Pieces of April was. Just thinking about my dad. I was thinking about my dad the entire time. And Patricia Clarkson, I owe a great debt for giving me some memories,
Mm.
and making me think about things where it was difficult on Thanksgiving. We had a Thanksgiving, one of the best Thanksgivings, like in 1980. I want to say it's like 83. We had the entire family come up to Monticello, New York, on my dad's side, and they came in, and everybody squeezed in this little apartment, and everybody was sleeping on top of like couches and chairs and tiny apartment. And my grandfather and him were cooking the turkey and playing with this thing he got, the Betamax that he got. and he was watching movies with his old man, and I was up. I was 8. I was up and I was watching things with them. So like Star Trek 2 on beta. You know what I mean? Like just incredible while they're cooking the turkey at like 4 in the morning. You know, just because at that time nobody understood really how to cook a turkey. I don't think anybody knows how to. I still don't think people know how to cook. I think it's like 20 pounds an hour or whatever the fuck. People make shit up all the time. But I think that's one of the great things about this movie is that it will make you think about your parents. It'll make you try to make the holidays better and an event. A couple comments. Happy Thanksgiving season, guys. Big Pieces of April fan here. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
We appreciate that. And
I think we're all in the same boat there on that.
Yeah, we are. Ken also, you said about 20 people for every holiday back in the day. Now it's just me and mom. I'm sorry about that, Ken. But I also think it's lucky that you still have your mom. I don't know what Rich is doing. I know that we are anticipating in this household. My cousin is coming home. So my nephews, my cousin, her husband.
I'm doing Friendsgiving with Darren and Natasha and a couple of other friends.
We have like 17 people on the guest list. It's
nice.
gonna be crazy here. Yeah, I'm staying in my fucking. I'm not going anywhere near it. It's gonna be chaos. They get chaos, and we bought like a bunch of booze to try to smooth everything. It's gonna be great though. I look forward to it, and like I think the magic. One of the things about Piece of April it makes you think about is you make the holiday of what you want it to be. Right? They're teaching April how to do the cranberry sauce. They're teaching April. I like the can. Great. Don't serve that to people. You know what I mean? Like, but it's one of those things where it's like you make the holiday as special as you can, and you thank your blessing, and you eat food, and you just go merrily on your way. And I think that's a great place to stop. And tonight, where can people find you, my good friend, my good man?
They can find me dashing about various movie theaters in Philadelphia over this screening schedule for the next couple of days.
Yeah, you're busy.
When I have a free moment, though, I will be writing about some of these films, at least initially. There's a few things I can't talk about for several weeks. And
what have you already seen? Wait a second. That's too much of a tease. What have you already seen?
Actually, the last screening I was at was the Marvels. This is the week that kind of kicks it into high gear. I mean, there's some stuff I saw at the Philadelphia Film Festival, like Maestro, Rustin, American Fiction, The Holdovers, which opened this past weekend. The Holdovers is just so damn good. Folks, go see this movie. It's another holiday film about found family, actually.
I'm seeing it Thursday. So I'm looking imminently forward to it.
I'm looking forward to hearing from you about it.
We will. We will. I will actually tell you right now. If you want to join me, you showed up for the Marvels this week. The Holdovers I'm going to do Friday afternoon, 4:30, depending if you can get out of work.
I might be able to finagle that.
There you go. That's just a tease right there.
But
we might get together on Friday.
Once I get to start talking about those, I'll start throwing that up on FilmBuff Online. .com, where all of my writing is. My other podcast that I do is called the Big Picture Podcast. I do that with my good friend Natasha Bogutsky.
Frequent guest Natasha Bogutsky.
Yeah, and this week's episode, which God's willing I'll have posted at some point tomorrow, we have I do a special interview with Mystery Science Theater 3000 writer producer Matt McGinnis, who I've known for a while now, actually.
You also saw Scarface for the first time this week, right?
Yeah, but we're holding off. We're actually doing a retro review of Scarface next week. It's on our schedule.
Interesting. So, what a Merry Thanksgiving movie that is.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Nothing says Merry Thanksgiving like chopping people up in a Cuban person.
Hello to my little turkey.
Where else can people find your stuff?
You can find me on the socials at FilmBuffRich on Twitter and Blue Sky, and FilmBuff Online, of course, has our wonderful Facebook page. where you can see links to all our stuff as it gets published, plus film history and some other things that we do exclusively there.
Okay, before I get to where you can find me, although, you don't have to really look far because I'm right now a whore for content. You can find me tomorrow night. I'll be doing Loud and Nerdy at its new time, 9 p.m. We're running with it. We're gonna try a new time for Loud and Nerdy. It gives me a little bit of time to get the kiddos into bed. It also gives you a little bit of time to maybe get some coffee. We'll talk about some movies that I've seen over the weekend. I saw today the fantastic Albert Brooks documentary.
Oh, it's so wonderful, isn't it?
Defending My Life. If you're a fan of comedy, I cannot emphasize enough the things that you get to see and the stories you get to hear. And there is something, and I'm not to spoil it, but David Letterman says something so fucking profound that I could not believe it came out of his mouth. But then when it did come out of his mouth, I was like, holy shit.
That's the very last thing of the movie, right? Is what you're referring to? That's an amazing summation.
It's an amazing summation, and it's crazy. You could also see us next week, Loud Nerdy, our Generation movie with JW and Rich next Monday night, and it's the big one. It is. We haven't done a movie of this size, of this importance, with regards to a comedy that it's in my top 5 comedies of all time. Tie. I'm a John Candy fan, though. I'm a sucker for Candy. We are doing Planes, Trains, and Automobiles next week. And it's celebrating its 36th year of making you feel warm and cuddly. And also, those aren't pillows. For 2023. But Planes, Trains, and Automobiles next week. You can find me online at JW the Movie Guy, Facebook, JW the Movie Guy, on Twitter or X or whatever the fuck the maniac is calling it now. And also Blue Sky, JW the Movie Guy. You could also look for us every week on the Indie Escape Network if you like and watch the show. By all means, please subscribe. Let's see. JW, if you get to see The Abyss 4K, will you do a 20-minute review? Yes, although I will tell you it's not anywhere locally for me yet. I was looking at it for it online. I haven't found it. I would do a review of The Abyss if my life depended. I saw The Abyss in the summer of 92. I saw The Abyss not summer, but during the year 1992. I saw The Abyss when they recut it and made the special edition at a 70mm theater in DC.
Oh, nice.
And it was one of the greatest. It was a legit 70mm theater. It wasn't screwing around fake IMAX thing. It was fucking huge. And so I would love to do a 20-minute review of The Abyss if we get a chance. And then,
I just checked Cinemark's site for the December 6th. Also on that night, Monty Python and the Holy Grail 48 and a half anniversary quote along.
Love John, can't stand Steve. Ken McKernan, what?
We will get into that next week, Ken.
We will. The Abyss is a great movie. Yeah, The Abyss is.
Fantastic.
I think it might be. It's in the argument wheelhouse. Cameron's best movie, but we will discuss that more. But more importantly, if you get a chance, you can rewatch Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and then come in on Monday night prepared for your Thanksgiving week as we discuss one of the greatest singular road comedies in the history of film, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, next week. Thank you for joining us tonight. Stay safe, and we'll see everybody next week. Loud Nerdy tomorrow night at 9. Bye.
Bye-bye.